There's no way actually, you could actually do a smaller things. It's okay, I'll use the big one, I'll struggle.
How small?
Pretty much, newer have pretty much these for like £250 each. Yeah. I have a few of them and I totally recommend them. I would definitely say go for them. But the reason I don't use them is because when it comes to like triggering, the trigger, which is gone, but yeah, someone has it. You know a little trigger for the line? Oh, it's over there. Okay, excellent. That will only speak to the brand it's for. So if I have like a bunch of Neo lights and a bunch of Bowens lights, I can only control however many of that brand. So my Neo lights are now just my spares. But I originally bought them as little kind of high-speed sync lights, and I was so happy with the results, I then bought more Bowens to meet my other Bowens so that I could trigger them all together and really do some kind of creative stuff with it. Everything's sharp. If I change my aperture to make it brighter, it'd become overexposed, which we did. So I made my aperture 1.4, I think, or 2.8, 1.4, and that's what happens. And those settings are as dark as I could possibly get my settings at that aperture. So this is 1.4, 200 a second, ISO 100. I couldn't make that any darker, apart from maybe putting like an ND filter over the lens. But the problem with that is, it's difficult to focus if you're putting a pair of sunglasses in front of your lens, to be honest. So if you want to focus and get that, so what we did is we set it to high speed sync. So this is 4,000 of a second, 1.4 ISO 100, and the difference is, if you zoom in, you can see totally in the focused eye, but by the time it gets here, it's gone. You couldn't, that's not possible in a normal shooter set without high speed sync. Well, it is possible with an ND filter, but then you have to set focus, put the filter on, take your photo, take it off. Like, by putting a filter on your and delete a folder. Over here. So, and I was gonna, yep, cool. And so, how's the show going? Yep. So, looks like that's really good. Excellent. So, like, well, that's how they break. So, yeah, you're not. These aren't things that take time. Metering would take time. Oh, and so I was going to meet you here. F7, excellent. Oh, perfect shot. Like, that takes time, but just talking away as you're doing stuff. But it's like, but this is one of these kind of things. It is a just no situation where it is like, if you've done enough shoots to know why it's too bright, you can just go and fix it as you're going along. I think sticking to the dogma of film in a digital age is slower, in a sense. So I'm not saying, I'm definitely not anti metering. That is not the case at all. I'm definitely not anti metering. But I think there are more efficient ways in a very limited time with a client to get your job done without feeling like you're some kind of amateur or phony or philistine for not following the dogma. I used to use like the import section here and like find like random imports, but sometimes I'd be importing like multiple products in the same day. And if they're all dated, you can go like a day and find 6 shoots in there and which way you're going for. So in that import stage, by clicking that Add to Collection button, I instantly create a designated folder just for the shots of that particular project I want to work on. So it's, in terms of workflow, this is a very good way of keeping, if you're busy and working on different projects, this way I can go to my collection section in the library tab, and in here will be Wex London. So I can go to, say, that's a particular project. Maybe I want to go back and get this photo again. I know it's exactly there. If I want this recent import, I can go there. And they're all there. And when it comes to culling, I'll do it with it. So that's just the import section, why I do that. We'll go back to our photos now. Actually, because these are tethered, these don't actually have a collection, so I can create a collection by selecting all my photos. So I've just selected them all with Command A or Control A on Windows. And I can add to collection. So I go through usually 4 at a time. And this is kind of nice. This is a technique I learned when I used to work for a nightclub photography company. Is I will select 4 at a time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just doing keyboard shortcuts by holding Shift, but you'd just click these. When I get the number N, the letter N for number, I bring up number mode. So anything that's selected will appear in the screen. So rather than view them all at once or 1 at a time, I can choose what I view. So I can just pick 4 at a time. I can go, okay, that one's staying, and they can all go. They're gone. So really quickly, I can go 4 at a time, that one keep, get rid of the rest. 4 at a time, that one keep. So if I'm doing, sometimes I'm doing a shooting, it's like, and I'm just looking for that bit with a perfect pose. Say someone's moving like this, I go on like burst mode, and I only also need one. I'm not going to send them all those photos. I can go to my library in the colour profile. Colour profile is quite important because every camera is different, and all your colours are going to be off all the time. If you don't have a colour profile set up for your camera, I would suggest not using Adobe Colour, which is the preset one, the default one, is going all the way down and doing camera neutral. See the difference there? The subtle difference. What camera neutral is going to give you is a much more accurate image from what you shot. Adobe Colour almost like ruins your photo, especially if you're shooting in like gigs or nightclubs and LED lights flash and they create this horrible like singular colour patch on their face. Changes camera neutral and that'll instantly go. Instantly. The fact that this is not set to default baffles me. But if you don't have a colour card, camera neutral is your boy. Or you could use colour camera portrait, which gives you stronger skin tones, but I think they're too strong as a starting point. I usually go for neutral because I can, if I want to boost the skin tones, I can just do that in Lightroom. What vibrance does, but it's saturation just like boosts all the colours, whereas vibrance kind of boosts the tones.
It's some of the mid-tones, I think, slightly orange.
Yeah, vibrance is like saturation, but only on the tone rather than the full overall colour. So it's a lot more subtle. So if you're going to boost saturation, vibrance is probably a better option because you can do it very subtly. You can use the tone curve to increase contrast if you want to use that method of doing it, like by boosting the highlights and lowering the shadow areas, or you can retrieve some shadow detail by lifting the end of it, things like that. I could just do that in Photoshop, but if you want to keep well, I would just do that in Photoshop. If you want to keep it all within Lightroom, that's another little step. So if you boost the contrast in the slider, you can boost it more with the tone curve. Or you can ignore the slider completely and do it fully by hand manually, and that gives you full control over it. So if you are boosting contrast, I would definitely recommend the tone curve section over just the slider. But you could use both. There's no rules against that. Hue saturation luminance is a slider I use actually quite a lot when balancing images, and usually it's from the kind of saturation point where I'm using this little target thing. I can pick a colour and bring it down. So if someone has like red patchy skin, I can grab this little target, grab the little red part and bring it down, and you notice it brings down the saturation but only of those skin tones. Kyron doesn't have red patchy skin, so it's not going to show you much, but you can see all those settings that I've applied to it and kind of bake them in. It'll still be a raw, we're not losing any quality, we're not losing any quality at all, it's still perfectly good quality. But all those settings are baked in, and that's how I usually work because it's much quicker. You could open as a smart object in Photoshop, and what I'll do is that'll import the raw with all these settings, but you can then change those settings in Photoshop afterwards if you wanted to. But you can be like, actually, those highlights are a bit too far down. I can then use a smart object in Photoshop to bring them up without going back into Lightroom and fixing it again. But the reason I always go with the top option rather than the bottom option is because that file is massive, like gigabytes and gigabytes big. And when you're working on a batch of 20 photos, even on my fastest machine, it gets clogged up. So this is a much quicker way of working. But you are baking all the settings. So if you're going to go with an option, you always want to be happy that all this is as you want it to be at this stage. So I'll go to open in Photoshop. And I will show you a quick bit of retouching. Yeah. And how I changed that. So this next bit of retouching, I'm going to go through a whole process. It's going to sound very complicated. Don't worry. It's called the only thing you need to know about this and write down if you want to do this is called frequency separation.
Very complicated, isn't it?
It's complicated. So it's different from a normal brush. A mixer brush is essentially a smudge tool. For example, I'm smudging all that data around like that. I'm just smudging the colours. So now, when I go to the skin, I can just smudge the skin around. I'll turn the texture back so you can see. So what I'm doing is just smudging the skin texture. So what this does is it evens out all the colour. You see, like, this is going very heavy-handed. I'm doing it on purpose for a reason. So what I'm doing is just going to almost Barbie doll Karen's face. And I'm always painting in the shape of the face. I'm not just over the texture layer. Before that. But because I duped this layer up, this layer is unaffected. This one hasn't had the smudginess put to it. I've got a layer, like a copy of that layer, and the original. And what I can do is go to the copy and bring the opacity down. Go all the way down and we're back to normal again. So I can control how much I bring this in. I use that to build contrast if I wanted to. Rather than just doing it, so I've got a contrast slider, I would build it in layers like this. And the reason for that is I've got far more control over every single part of it, but I could also, let's turn it off for now, use curves to bring down highlights in certain areas. So similar to the HSL slider before the target, there's a little finger area here. I can say this skin tone here is too bright. If I click on that, it creates a point. If I drag that down, it will use that as its focus. So I'm darkening the skin tones. I can go, okay, I want them to be that dark. But now what I can do, because it's on a curves adjustment layer, is use a mask by painting it black to get rid of it, and only paint it in where I want it. So any little hot spots of skin, I can just like paint that adjustment in. Rather than changing the whole image, I can control using adjustments layers where it actually happens. So it's great for like if skin's too bright or a dress is too bright. Or you can even use it for changing colour by using like an HSL adjustment. I use adjustment, so for every little tweak I'm doing, there's contrast and things like that, I'll use adjustment layers because I can layer them up and paint them on and off. And that's how you kind of get a full, almost cinematic graded image. Rather than just going, it actually boosts my SEO. Because my website's mentioned in the keywords. Yeah.
The metadata contains all this information. Also, when I put images on my actual site, I didn't do a test, I found it actually by accident. It was amazing how it worked. When I started doing those headshot days, those little kind of day-long things, I started adding headshot to all the keywords in all those images. And within the next month, I went from page 10 to page 1 quickly. Just by adding one keyword to there. Because all the photos that were out there underneath it had, but also had, like, so a design page hasn't those ranks, but if you search Edinburgh headshot photographer, I went right to the top because all my images now have headshot written on it. So I'm not the high ranking in terms of photography in Edinburgh in Google, but when it comes to headshots, and I'm not even like a headshot photographer, I do headshots, but there are people in Edinburgh who just do headshots. That's all they do. And they're lower in the ranking system than I am, because I use my keywords. So metadata is quite a good thing. So by taking your Photoshop file back into your collection again, you're setting yourself up for better metadata. But if you add your metadata before you take it to Photoshop, it does pass over, but you can keep better. You can keep better tabs on whether it's working, and I'll correct, if you just keep working from Lightroom for your exports and imports. And Photoshop is just for your actual edit. So imagine if like kind of you prepare it in Lightroom, take it into Photoshop, save it, when you open Lightroom, it will be there. And then you can continue your exporting process. Rather than exporting from Photoshop, export from Lightroom. Then you're keeping the same system, there's lots of consistency amongst all your images, and the client has a batch of images that is like, okay, these are all the same, I can use these anyway. But that concludes the end of our day. Sorry, the end was an academic one. Any questions to end us off on whether it's on this section or the entire day in